Hello, everyone. It's fun to see all the different planner types coming in the chat. All the different options that there are to use. It's so fun that there are so many different options because certainly there's one that will work then, right? But picking one and sticking with it is harder when there are so many options. So one of the questions here is there a way to capture all these planner ideas that are happening here in the chat? And the planner sample area that's created to accompany the book. I did want to have like lists of options that real moms are using, not just what's marketed out there, but what are people actually using. So we are going to collect these and add them to that sample area, which you can find by accessing convivialplanner.com. That's where you can find the link to the book. There's also that right there. But at convivialplanner.com, you can find out more about the book. Soon there will be a way to get it not on Amazon there as well. And you can get the free planner pages and visit the sample pages. Yesterday's session really was about what a planner is, what your planner has to have to be a helpful planner. And today's session is what it really means to use a planner, because we might buy a planner, make a planner, pull some things together to have a plan, and then the question becomes, now what? What does it really look like to use this thing? How do I know I'm doing it right? What am I supposed to be doing? And so that's what we're going to cover today, with what does it look like to use your planner, because it really is our action that makes a planner work. The planner itself will only sit there. It's our action that makes all the difference, that makes the planner actually work. I'm not going to get distracted by survival mode, Audrey, but it's a thing. It's totally legitimate to be in survival mode, and we have a planner recommendation for survival mode seasons, and that is the daily card, and that's it. And with especially twins, new baby season of life, feeding people can totally be one of those things that makes it on the daily top 3, because it's where do I have to focus my attention today? So that daily card might be all you need during some seasons. And we're going to cover the daily card a little bit more today as well. But also in next year, in the early part of the year, we do have some plans coming up for survival mode. Not just getting out of it. I think there's a lot of stuff out there that's like help step by step how to get out of survival mode, and that's where my course's simplified organization came out of my experiences and notes and brain dumps and everything from multiple times of trying to climb out of survival mode after new babies and after changes. But what about when you're in survival mode legitimately, and that's just where you need to be functioning? Sometimes it's just not the time to climb out. Sometimes it's just where you are. And how do you survive cheerfully in survival mode? We're going to be covering that kind of in at least by February of next year. We'll see how long it takes me to pull everything together. But there is a plan for that. So this workshop today on using a planner is more for the mom who is maybe climbing out of survival mode. It's time to leave that behind, or there's just no excuse really. We really ought. This is the season I'm in. Like, there, I sometimes might be operating as if I'm in survival mode, but I've got no excuses to not be doing the things. I need to be working faithfully, paying attention, doing my job. And when I'm not, it's because my attention is elsewhere. The planner and using a planner is primarily a tool for directing our attention and our energy where it ought to go. It's our attention that we are directing. And the planner helps with that, because the planner, we wrote the plan, we put it all together in a way that cut through the scattered, distracted brain fog, or just brain clutter, where we're trying to hold everything and do everything in our heads all at once. The plan distills things, filters things, and then using it is about directing our attention properly. So if you spent more time setting up that planner than using it, we need to fix that, and using it's what we're going to focus on today. If you aren't even sure what using a planner really means, that's what today is all about. Maybe you've decided planners just don't work for you, but did you ever actually work the plan you made? Right? If you're overwhelmed when you look at your plans, and so you don't really, you feel paralyzed if you look at your plan, and so you avoid looking at your plan. And then I know most of us here, we're starting the new school year and we just really want to get the ball rolling and not have the ball roll over us this school year. So this is why we are here, and this is why we are jumping in to getting our planner under control, which means self-control. The planner is a tool to help us exercise and grow in self-control. It helps us direct our attention. But it really is about us and what we are doing with the planner. Using a planner boils down to looking at your planner and then using that information that's there to make wise decisions about what to do next. So using a planner isn't even about doing all the things that are on the plan. There's never been a time where at the end of the day, I look back at the plan that I had at the start of the day and it had all happened according to plan. Never. And that's not the goal. The goal of planning the day is not to have the day go according to my plan. That took a long time for me to give up. So I'm just giving you that little tidbit right here, right up front. So maybe you don't have to fall off your high horse, really, your planner self as many times as I did. Just give it to you right up front. The point of making a plan is not to have the day go according to your plan. And that's not just for moms with children, especially small children, but it does apply especially to moms at home. This is the point in that it's actually a German general, right? Or Eisenhower, I put it in the book. That no plan survives first contact with the enemy, right? Have you heard that? Now, our children are not our enemies, but they are enemies of a well-laid plan. But it's the well-laid plan that has to die. It's our expectations. It's our desire to control the situation in our children that has to die. So no plan survives first contact with the enemy. But this is from a general whose job it is to plan battles. So the whole point of a plan is to understand the situation and know where the strategic moments are and what the strategic tasks are. So it's not about predicting the day. It's about understanding what is most important and where you need to apply yourself and your energy and your attention most, so that you make wise decisions in the moment. You're still going to need to alter your plan in the moment. You are still going to have to adapt and adjust and flex in the moment. And we all have seen or been those women who are so tied to the plan that they have made that they are terrible to be around, right? And that's not what we want. And sometimes we give up on planners or planning because we recognize that's where we're at, or that's where we're headed. Or we've seen it in other people micromanaging and just being rude and obnoxious because they're trying to make their plan happen because their plan was so beautiful and wonderful. And if everyone would just do the plan, including ourselves, then everything would be wonderful. But that's a desire to be as God in our lives and to be the one to just speak and it's so. To be the one exercising sovereign providential care. And that's not the role that we are given. And that's not our job. And every time we try to take that role, we're going to be knocked over. And it's for our good. Our plan will be ruined. And that would actually be better than us getting our way. Better for us, better for the world, better for our children. So when we make the plan, we have to approach it with the right attitude, with the right mindset, with the right expectations. But if we do have the right expectations about our plan, then it doesn't bother us when our plan doesn't work out. When God sends an interruption, and any interruption that happens is an interruption that God sent. We don't have to decide, oh no, this interruption didn't. Nope. Providence. Every interruption is an interruption that God sent. And the question is, how will we respond? And the correct response isn't going to be the one that makes my plan happen most consistently. The response is going to be, what does love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control look like right now? What does it mean to walk in that right now? And if that's the response that we're supposed to have with any interruption or any change of plans, and it is, then how do we reflect that in our planning? We have to plan to grow in the fruit of the Spirit every day. That means that's what we're expecting to need. That means that we're expecting that at some point we are going to be called upon, we are going to be required to exercise patience, which means we're going to have a temptation to impatience. Or we're going to be tempted to self-pity or bitterness or resentment instead of joy. So as we're making our plan, we're not just trying to list all the tasks and then get all the tasks done. We have to operate with that mindset of a general planning out his troops for a battle, we're not expecting everything to go our way. We are taking a moment ahead of time to know where the breaking points are most likely to come and reinforce those spots. And understand, okay, this is strategic and this would just be nice to have. And we're orienting ourselves to our day so that we can respond with wisdom and diligence, faithfulness, fruitfulness. We need some of those watchwords to be guarding our plan and guarding our heart and guarding our hands as we move forward in the plans. So that's a big part of the big picture planning. To use our plan and to help the plan that we made inform the decisions that we make and help us step away from stress, like take a deep breath and not give in to anxiety, other sins like that, crankiness, irritation, frustration. These are all sinful responses to us not getting our way. And sometimes we make a plan as if we just insist enough by writing it down, by making it a plan, then we'll get what we desire. We desire good things, we think, but we desire them in wrong ways, not the ways that God works. So God's going to continue to work no matter what we want. And we will experience less friction and frustration and irritation and anxiety if we submit to God rather than trying to set ourselves up as little mini gods doing our thing in our life with our family. So that can look different for different women in different situations, but I think it's a temptation that we all, just that humans experience. And for women, it's going to mostly manifest itself in home and family relationships, because that's our setting and that's our calling. But still, that doesn't mean that planning is a waste of time, because if we just go with the flow of our hearts, that will tend toward neglect and sloth and apathy rather than uptight anxiety. And going from one ditch to the other isn't better. It's different, but we don't want to be on either ditch. We want to be on the path of faithfulness and fruitfulness. And so that means that we recognize that our attention and energy and time are limited and that they matter and that they are to be used for God's kingdom. They are to be used to do our duty, fulfill our responsibilities, walk in the calling that we have. And we can do that better if we're intentional and deliberate, because our hearts and our minds and our energy is such that it has to be directed or it will be dissipated and ineffective. Humans have to be disciplined to be effective. That's true with toddlers, and we know that. But it's true for all of us. It's true for all humans, all walks of life, all callings. To be effective, we have to be disciplined. Parents are given the job of disciplining their children, but the whole goal is to help them become self-disciplined. And that's because that's what adults are supposed to be. And that means the plan is a tool of self-discipline if it's going to be effective. And that's why we need a plan to use to be effective, to be self-disciplined. It's a way to exercise self-discipline in our callings. So we do that by knowing what our callings are and understanding what our current responsibilities are, which we determine during some kind of big picture planning session. So, it can take a while, maybe not two. I mean, how many of us have 2 or 3 hours all in one go to pull together some kind of big picture plan? But we do need to occasionally, not that often, but once every few months or so, once a year, twice a year, 3 or 4 times a year, to some extent or another, we need to step back and get that big picture, assess the big picture, make sure our expectations and habits and routines are aligned with what we're actually called to be, because we have a tendency to get off track and to get distracted. That's just a human tendency. So a big picture time isn't about choosing amazing, awesome goals and making a plan to achieve the goals that we've set, so much as it is wrapping our heads around what we're called to do and how we're going to grow in that calling, grow in fruitfulness and faithfulness for the next stretch of time. So some kind of goal setting stuff might be helpful, but it really depends on how you're approaching it. And what we really need is just to step back every once in a while and be sure that we are not off track, not just on a hamster wheel of keeping up with what is going on, but are we really growing? Are we fulfilling the callings that God has given us? Do we know what those are? Do we know what the next step of growth is? That takes a little bit of time and thought and brain dumping and writing some things out and praying about it. And so we need to make sure that occasionally we have some time set aside to do that. And that's big picture planning. Sometimes this is where we might go into that whole life overhaul mode, which generally doesn't work because, again, that's trying to remake your life all at once, to just speak and have it so, and that's not what's given to us. Fruit grows slowly over time, a course of a season, bit by bit. It's small, it gets bigger, it ripens. It's a gradual process, and that's the process of the work that God is doing in us and through us. Now, the most important piece of using your plan is the weekly review. And trust me, I have tried my best over the years to make that not true, to prove that that's not really true. But just by not doing it, but still trying to keep my plan up, like bit by bit, day by day, or like a little here, there, a little, and then big picture times where I put it all back, try to put the pieces back together again. And really, I just got my steps from articulating with my hands. I know that it's really hard, and I have argued with this myself. So I first heard about the weekly review from Getting Things Done by David Allen. I know I read it in my real early 20s, so like 18 years ago. And then I read it after, or I was either pregnant or I just had my third, who's now 14. It was around that time that I actually tried, like, okay, instead of just reading this and going, well, that's interesting, maybe that might work. I'm going to actually do it. I'm going to try to do this. And the weekly review is the linchpin key piece of the getting things done David Allen strategy. And it's like, wow, it really is super helpful. But it also takes time. And I don't always think I have the time. And sometimes I legitimately don't. So I have not been super consistent with a weekly review for 14 or 15 years since I first heard about the concept, tried it out. It was great. For some reason, that didn't make it stick right away because it's hard. And, a lot of the advice or the recommendations out there, the instructions, it's really set up for people in an office setting. Like most of the time they'll say, do this on Friday before you go home from the office. So then when you come back Monday, like everything's kind of in place, you know what you're doing, things are put away, so it's this kind of cleanup process. Wouldn't that be something to just check out Friday, not check back in till Monday, and then everything's like still in the place where you put it? That's not mom life. So then for a while I went through, this doesn't apply. How can this apply to mom life? Because I'm like always on duty. Always. Even on Sunday, like we can try to make it a day of rest, but sometimes that feels like it's just more work. It's more work to make it a day of rest. And there is no time off, ever. And so how in the world can I have 30 minutes, much less 2 hours? David Allen's weekly review, he says, is 2 hours. This just doesn't apply. It doesn't translate. It does translate. The translation might be a little bit difficult, and it's not exactly the same, and the promise isn't exactly the same. The results aren't exactly the same. But it is a true principle that every week we need to reset our plan. Every week we need to assess what happened to make a wise determination for what we need to do the following week. The world was created with a weekly rhythm. Therefore, our planning also should have a weekly rhythm. We should think about our time and our responsibilities with a weekly rhythm, because that is fundamental to the very fabric of the world, because that's the way that God made it, in weeks, with a pattern and repetition. Time rolls in weeks. That's not imposed by man on time. That is a given based on the creation itself before the fall. So if we can embrace the weekly rhythm by the way that we live our life, by the way that we plan our life, if we expect to have to put things back together every week, we will find ourselves working with the rhythm that God is working in the world. And it makes sense, and it's helpful, and it really works. Because it's not just us making something up. It's us being responsible and fruitful with the way that God made the world. So I'm not saying that if you don't do a weekly review, you're sinning, right? But I'm saying if we use the patterns that God has established, they make sense. And they really do work. And they really do help. We're working with the rhythm of the world. It's kind of like gardening. And our life is a garden. And there's a lot of weeding. And if the plants in there are going to be fruitful, if we're going to grow tomatoes and zucchini and green beans, then the fruit just doesn't come overnight. It doesn't just come after 1 week either. But there is a cultivating of plants that produce a crop. And then there's also weeding. And the weeds are always growing. And the weekly review is a time set up to pull the weeds from the plan. We can't just be cultivating only without pulling weeds. And we have to expect that things tend toward disorder, including our planner, including our habits. And so the weekly review is like a weeding session to just clear things out, make sure the space is being used the way it's supposed to be, that we notice the weeds, pull them. That takes a time reserved for it. We don't just automatically, habitually pull weeds. We have to set aside time for that. It's work. We have to make ourselves do it. And that's what the weekly review is. It's resetting for the week. And we have to reset because plans decay, plans tend toward disorder, plans grow weeds and need weeding and need to be put back together again. And if we just do it regularly, weekly, then we find that we're actually managing that garden well. It's not a problem that there are weeds in the daily, weekly sense. I think it's a problem. It's a result of the fall. But it's not like if we had the best planner, if we had the best routines, then we'd have a weedless garden. If there's something that we could do or buy or be so that weeds never grow, that's not the goal. That's not the point. The point is giving ourselves regular time to pull the weeds. And the weekly review is when you do that with your planner, cleaning up your planner. So the weekly review is really where our plans become effective. We need the daily times, but then we're just going day to day. And if we never step back and clean things up and reorient ourselves properly, then it's still just a scramble. But the weekly review keeps our eyes where they're supposed to be, keeps things tended, and that's where the real management comes in that big picture. Maybe we set a big picture, but managing ourselves in that big picture happens weekly during a weekly review. And over again, working through our simplified organization program with women, the ones who do really well and the ones who say this changed my life, invariably they say, I did the weekly review. I didn't do everything. No one ever does everything. But I really dug into the weekly review. Those are the women who make progress in the program. There are lots of different habits. The weekly review is the one that makes the biggest difference overall. It allows so many other things to fall into place. And that's a linchpin. It really is a linchpin habit where once it's in place, other things start to fall into place. Keystone habit. Now, that the weekly review is where we weed our garden, our planner, but then we do have to be doing the things. And so that happens daily, right? It's in the moment, in the day that we do the things. So before the day begins, we have to look at that plan. Otherwise, we just get started. It's just go mode. And we don't even know where the day has gone before it's like, oh yeah, wait a sec. Was there something else I was supposed to be doing today? What's going on again? Where does my focus need to be? 5 minutes with your coffee, with your breakfast, with or treadmill, and whatever you already have going in the morning, tie 5 minutes with your planner to whatever your current morning routine is, your actual morning routine and not your ideal morning routine that never actually happens. But spend 5 minutes looking at the plan and praying over the plan in the morning. Give the day to God. Talk to him about your plan. Orient your mind and your heart to jump in. That has to happen in the morning. And then the evening is a little mini weeding session. You just look at how it went. And this sometimes will uncover a huge part of our problem as women. If you end the day saying, I didn't do anything today, I didn't get anything on my list done, I didn't do hardly any, we just go into negative critical assessment of our day, of our plan, of ourselves, just at the drop of a hat. If things don't go exactly the way we wanted them to, we're like, throw up our hand, nothing went well today. Because things didn't go perfectly. None of it counts. And sometimes we even think that is we think we're being honest, but we aren't, because you did do some things, not nothing. But we're really crippling ourselves when we say nothing counts, I didn't get anything done, it was a failure. We look at the plan and we only see the things that we didn't do. And that just ends up actually taking us down to a place where it's like, why even bother trying? And you can ask me how I know. I've been in that place a number of times, like, why even bother? But that is down the road from just saying nothing that I do counts. So don't say that, because it's not true. And you're not going to go good places if you end every day lying to yourself. So we have to end the day telling ourselves truth, which doesn't mean telling ourselves that we're awesome and wonderful and rocked the day if we didn't. But it does mean noticing what we did do, repenting of any sins, but that means that they're gone, not that we need to keep walking in them, but they're rejected, they're gone, we're clean, we're moving forward. We need to end the day satisfied, grateful. Every day should end with gratitude to God for that day. And if we aren't ending our day grateful for the day, then we're off. And there's heart work and attitude work that has to happen there. The plan should be reminding ourselves, like, okay, I was supposed to be doing this. Did that not happen because God called me to something else at that time? Because, turns out I couldn't thoroughly clean all the bathrooms like I wanted to, because it turns out that I actually had to parent children. Disciple them and walk with them through something. That takes time, and you can't plan it. You can't schedule that in ahead of time. You can't predict when it's going to happen. But that's why you need that big picture and sometimes weekly review reminder of what your true priorities are, such that when you come to the end of the day, you're grateful for the opportunity to parent your children and walk with them. And it's okay. And then the bathroom, that's moving for tomorrow, I guess. Or look, nope, my calendar's full for tomorrow. That's going to happen Saturday. Tomorrow is Saturday, isn't it? Yeah, some of the days just keep coming. I like to then make my daily card list, your top 3. I think Post-its are perfect because our days are small. And so our daily list needs to also be small. I like to make mine the night before, because for 2 reasons. I personally make a more realistic plan if I do it at the end of a day rather than at a fresh start beginning. As I tend to be an optimist in the morning and make an unrealistic, I can do all the things plan in the morning. At the end of the day, where I'm looking at my list of all the things that I didn't do that day, I can say, you know what? It's because I put this on my list and it's not actually that important to accomplish right now. What is important is this other thing, so I'm putting that on the top of my list for tomorrow. And so I make a plan. And then I find when I've made my plan the night before, it helps me get up in the morning with the proper focus and to do that morning plan efficiently. That morning planning session, where it's just 5 minutes, because the plan's already made. It's just like jumping into it. I wake up knowing that there are things I'm supposed to be doing. It's already figured out. It's not like you kind of that vacation mode where you wake up, you're like, oh, there's not really, my day has no direction. And I'm going to have to give my day direction, after breakfast, after coffee, after my walk, and then the day's rolling without direction. If I figure out that direction the night before, it makes for a way better morning because I don't have to decide where my focus is going to be. It's in front of me. It's go time. Yes, Sarah is more of an optimist at night. So you got to just experiment and figure out what's going to actually work for you. And you don't really know until you've tried it a few times and you figure it out. That's why we iterate, which we'll talk more about tomorrow. So the weekly review you can do it with all the kinds of planners. It means looking at your planner. And I'm already going long here, and I have blog posts and videos and stuff about a weekly review. So the important thing about making the weekly review happen is that you actually have to schedule it. I am not a proponent of filling the calendar with tasks, but I have found, and other women in our community have found, that if you don't deliberately choose and follow through with a regular time to do your weekly review, it's one of those things that's easy to procrastinate. It ends up never actually happening. So the weekly review has to go on your calendar. So if it doesn't happen at the time that you scheduled it, it has to move somewhere else. That's why I like Google Calendar, because you can drag things around. I was like, oh, I usually do my weekly review here. Because of events, that's not going to happen. So I have to put it somewhere else. But I can't just delete it. It has to move. So where is it going to move? And we need to be thinking strategically about our week. And we need to be experimenting. Because sometimes Friday is a good day. And sometimes it isn't. It depends on how you use your Saturdays. Sometimes Saturday is a good time, and sometimes it isn't, because it's too full already. Sometimes Sunday evening works really well. And then sometimes, if you have evening service or whatever, that's just not going to work. So you have to look at your own calendar and think about your own weekly pattern and try a spot at the end of your week or the very beginning of your week where you can put in 45 minutes of going over the planner and getting your head wrapped around your upcoming week. It's really is wrapping your head around the week. So at what point in your week does that make most sense for the different things that you have going on? We have women doing it and everywhere from Thursday afternoon to Monday morning. It's not like there's a best time. that across the board at all. And it will take iteration to figure out. It will take experimenting, trying something, figuring out why it did work, why it didn't work, and trying it again. So during your weekly review and your daily, like during those different times, you have to go over those essential parts of your planner, right? We talked about what the essential parts of the planner are yesterday. And so now we're going to talk about when you actually look at them to make them useful. So your calendar, you have to look at it every morning and every night. And throughout the day might be good too, depending on whether or not it's on Google Calendar and you get automatic reminders, or based on how much you have going on in the day. But you need to look at your calendar at the start of the day and the end of the day at least. And then during your weekly review, you will also look at your calendar and you'll look at what's coming up for the next 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, just so you're not surprised by anything that's coming up, a birthday, that kind of thing. Your dashboard, you make the dashboard during your weekly review. That's one reason why it's key. You need that weekly view, and your weekly review is when you put that together. And then you look at the dashboard to inform your attention and decisions in the morning and the evening, and then during the day whenever you need direction. The dashboard is where the direction is when you need the plan. When you need to not make a choice, you just need to follow the plan. You need to remind yourself of what it was that you were going to do. You look at the dashboard. The daily card, you create it daily. I like to make mine at the end of the day. You might make it at the beginning of the day, but you have to make the daily card. And then you have to look at it regularly, at least until all 3 things are done. It's your focus card. Your menu strategy. So the strategy, the overall things like making decisions about, okay, we're going to focus on eating through our pantry right now. We're going to focus on eating more vegetables. We're going to, that big picture, just Taco Tuesday and Pizza Friday. It's not a menu plan, like we're going to have exactly this on this day, but it's the framework. The framework strategy piece is a big picture. You don't have to come up with a new one from scratch every single week. That would be exhausting. And it's not really a pattern. That's not a very good strategy. You want to think it through and then go with that strategy for a stretch to get the most out of it. But then you plan from your strategy at your weekly review. Because your weekly review, you have to say, okay, do we have the food that we need? Do I need to go to the grocery store? What do I need to get at the grocery store? This is happening during your weekly review. You're prepared for the week when you know what you're going to be eating. And then you have to look at that plan or adjust your day from the strategy. Do you need to pull some food from the freezer? Do you need to chop vegetables during lunch? Know what your food plan is at the beginning of the day. Your routine details, again, that's figuring out what your routines need to be, is big picture planning. And then reviewing it during your weekly review. I mean, reviewing it should take like 2 minutes. I really just mean reading those lists to remind yourself of it. Happens during your weekly review. And then you just run with it. And your project hub, again, also you create during the big picture session. You look at it during your weekly review, and you use the project hub, the menu strategy to populate your dashboard, to fill it out. You're not just pulling from what you happen to be thinking about at that minute. You already have a list of your responsibilities, your vocations, your callings, what's going on. There's a running list going, and so you're looking at that and plugging in what needs to happen this week. It's a filter. You're narrowing it down. You are giving things focus during this time. You can get those pages at convivialplanner.com and some samples. Sarah just shared a link there with a post that has some examples. You can get a lot of ideas there at that post or at convivialplanner.com. And really, it just does take experimentation for your own, figuring out what you need to see. It's not something you can just get set up from the get-go and run with without adjusting. It will take adjustment from experience. So that means that without working it, without trying it, without putting something in place and getting started, you're never going to get to the point of knowing what will work, because it's not head knowledge. It's experiential knowledge. It's practice that helps us to refine our own approach and our own practices. You have to jump in with practice to get better at it. And with the weekly review being the linchpin piece, we get lots and lots of questions about that. And I would just love to see more women be more effective in their lives, because they've wrapped their head around what their lives are for. They have direction. They're working on faithfulness and fruitfulness. And I really do know that a weekly review is a tool that helps make that happen. And I know that from my own life, from when I'm doing it and when I'm not doing it. And I know that from inside our community, going through our community coaching program through Simplified Organization. That's what I hear over and over and over again. That it was the weekly review that made all the difference. And things work when I do the weekly review, and things start falling apart when I fall off the bandwagon. But a weekly review, I know my tendency is when I'm doing that big picture thinking, I want to get the perfect weekly review, right? I want a checklist, and I want to do a complete, total, perfect weekly review from the get-go, or it doesn't even count as a weekly review, right? It's that all or nothing perfectionist thinking that actually causes us to not do it at all. It lets us off the hook for doing anything. And so we have to overcome perfectionism and that all or nothing, boom or bust approach. And so I am currently very much in the thick of putting together a weekly review masterclass. So this is actually not a part of our membership. This is going to be separate from membership, just a single class that you can take, just 5 weeks. It's live. We're going to have so much accountability. I've learned a lot over the last 5 or 6 years of doing accountability with women virtually. And if we focus in using baby steps, using accountability, organizing our attitudes, and not just getting things done, we can make a huge difference in our personal effectiveness. That means getting the right things done. That means being satisfied at the end of the day. That means not thinking that most of the things you do don't count. It means putting together a list that is not just wishful thinking or perfectionist. It means being effective as a mom means that you are cheerful, fruitful. It means that you're not stressed and easily irritated and easily provoked by children being children. Being effective as a mom is being fruitful and faithful. And we can grow in that area, and we will see effects in our household. And it will help everyone around us, because that's a part of mom's role in her own home, and then just generally women in the world affect the people around them by our demeanor, we are managers, and we are directing, either intentionally or unintentionally, the lives and attitudes of the people around us. So we have to be intentional about our own attitudes, because they're contagious. Our attitude as moms, whether that's, and stress is an attitude, anxiety is an attitude, frustration and irritation, these are attitudes, they are heart problems, and they're contagious. But cheerfulness and, fruitful productivity, like go-getter, dig into the work at hand, these are attitudes as well, and they stem from the heart as well, and they are contagious as well. So it's very, very important what we as women are spreading to those around us, because whatever we have, we are spreaders. We are spreading it. And so it seems like, a weekly review is this kind of businessy thing that we can do as a mom, and kind of awkwardly fitting things for people who love to spend time with their planners. But that is not what I have seen over the years. And so I want to share that with you, and I want to help you have the tools and the skills for becoming effective in your life, in your home. So there'll be more details coming out. I'm really hoping Saturday, but I'm going to promise registration opens Monday. I'm still working out the details. So this is going to be separate from membership. Members, hold tight, because I'll tell you how you can get access to it. But the main thing is that this isn't something that you have to subscribe to get access to. It's a short-term commitment and a very focused commitment. And it's going to have outsized results for the time invested in it. We're going to have daily texts. We're going to have live video seminars, kind of like this, except only about 20 minutes. There will be a written and audio lesson where it's the same thing. You can read it or you can listen to it. A checklist worksheet for every week. And every week a live Zoom meetup where we learn from one another and share what we're doing. Because if you talk through what you're doing and how it's going, you will learn from the process more. So if we get on and share, not just ask questions, but share what's going through our mind, share how things go, we will learn better and faster. So that's an important key piece. It's not just doing, it's applying and living it out, and talking it out is a part of that. So, and everyone who does finish it will also get something in the mail. So all of the things that I have learned about doing accountability and mentoring and all of that, it's all the most effective pieces are going to be happening here for one very concentrated end. And that is building a weekly review habit brick by brick, baby step by baby step. And it is the real linchpin piece. And so many women can't, don't really think that it can be. It doesn't, on the surface, it doesn't look like that's what would be the linchpin piece. But I know that it is. So, we're going to do a master class on it to really dig in and go all in on that weekly review. But the final weekly review, this is not a David Allen 2-hour clear your office weekly review. This is a mom's weekly review, and it will build up from 15 minutes at the beginning of the week to be not more than 45-minute weekly review. We are going to use a timer. I'm going to have guided session, a recording that you could just put on that will help you to stay on track and not, it's so easy to start doing all the things. It's like just this 45 minutes, it can be done. We can move on if you stay focused, and focus is hard. So we're going to get focused, 45-minute weekly review. It can happen. It can make a big difference in your life. So stay tuned. If you are here live, then you will get more information about this coming in your email on Saturday and Monday and next week. And if you're a member, don't miss Monday's memo email, because it will have information for members, how you can get your access. And I'm just really excited for this. So, and I think the timing is really good, because we all have new plans, new schedules, and we can just jump into those, not all or nothing, but working up to a super efficient, hopeful, applicable weekly review habit right when we're setting the tone for our school year. So stay tuned, and I will be sending the replay and all of that out later today. So thanks, everyone.